Dear student, I welcome you again to this wonderful lesson as we continue with social studies in Standard 8. Remember, in social studies, we are looking at issues that affect us in our daily lives. The issues maybe that happened in the past that are still affecting us, we are looking at those things. That is social studies. The environment, the things that we do in our daily basis. So those are the things that we look at. Now, if you remember, last time we were looking at unit number 15. Remember, unit number 15 we were looking at the constitution of Malawi. And in that unit we had three parts, part 1, part 2, and part 3. We looked at all those things and I guess you remember all those things and what we talked about. But today we are continuing on another unit, and this one is unit number 16, when we are looking at this one, Nyasaland as a British colony. Nyasaland as a British colony. I talked about it, if you remember last time, that at one point in time, Malawi was colonized. If you remember way back, we also talked about partition of Africa, where different European countries, they divided up countries of Africa, and Malawi was taken by Britain. If you have forgotten, please go back to partition of Africa, go and see how many countries were colonized by Britain. But we will not look at all those countries. Today we will be looking at only the countries that were colonized by Britain, and this is our country, Malawi. So Malawi, remember, it was called Nyasaland. But before we proceed, as a reminder, as usual, I just want to remind you about this work. This work is for you. The work is for you. This is the Standard 8 work for social studies. Now, if you miss out, you miss out, because this is the work only for you. So 26 units together. Today we are on unit 16. It means we're closer. We're closing up to the end. So to this far, I guess you have too much information. You have too much information. If you have forgotten some, repetition is really good. Now let us proceed as we look at colonial period of Nyasaland, because we are looking at Nyasaland as a British colony. One of the results of partition of Africa was the establishment of colonies by various European nations. I talked about the partition of Africa, the topic or the unit that we looked at some time back, and here we are saying that the result of that partition of Africa, it was the establishment of these colonies by those European countries. So when we talk of a colony is a country under another country. A country under another country. So a colony is a country under another country. Take note of that. And Malawi was a British colony. So Malawi was under Britain. That's what we mean. Malawi was a British colony. It means Malawi was under Britain. So Malawi was a British colony. Now, what were the factors that led Nyasaland to become a protectorate? The factors behind the protectorate or the colony of Malawi, what were they? Number 1, the British missionaries in Nyasaland. Number 2, the scramble for Africa by European countries. The factors that resulted to Malawi to become under Britain were 2. Number 1, we are talking of the British missionaries in Nyasaland, the missionaries who came to Nyasaland. And number 2, the partition of Africa. So those were the things or the issues or the factors that prompted Britain to convince Britain to say, no, we're not getting any other country, but Nyasaland is going to be part of our country. So those 2. Now let us look at them, starting with the British missionaries. British missionaries like the UMCA, University's Mission to Central Africa, the Livingstonia Mission, Blantyre Mission, who had already established themselves around the Lake Nyasa or Lake Malawi region, did not want to be under the Portuguese. What we are saying here is that the missionaries came from Britain. So the UMCA, Livingstonia Mission, the Blantyre Mission, they all came from Britain. Now when they came, they established their mission stations here in Nyasaland or in Malawi. That's what we call Nyasa region or Lake Malawi region. So they established here. So them, the missionaries, when they came, during that partition of Africa, they convinced Britain to say, as you are partitioning this Africa, remember us here, we already came, we are the British citizens. So they are them that talked to the British government to say, to convince the British government to colonize or to take Malawi to be under Britain. The missionaries therefore asked Britain government or the British government to take control of the area and end slave trade. So the British missionaries who established already here, they were spreading the gospel, they talked to the British government to say, please control this area and end slave trade. So the missionaries were the ones who convinced the British government to colonize Nyasaland. The British government agreed to the missionaries' demand and declared a protectorate over Nyasaland on 14th May 1891. So the British government did not have any idea of this area, but because of these missionaries, because of the missionaries, then they accepted the missionaries' demands to say, yes, we are going to do that. And on 14th May 1891, that's when the British now, they did that. They declared a British protectorate. So Sir Harry Johnson was appointed Commissioner and Consul General. Sir Harry Johnson was now appointed by the British government to say, go to Nyasaland and you are the commissioner there. You are commissioned to take charge of that area. So he was a consul general when he came. So we have seen there that one of the factors that led Malawi to be under Britain, it was the coming of the missionaries. The missionaries, they convinced the British government to take control of this area to end slave trade. We have said there were two factors. The second one was Scramble for Africa. How did Scramble for Africa led to the Nyasaland to be under the British? Scramble for Africa. So the Scramble for Africa by European countries led to the partition of Africa. So European countries, they were scrambling for Africa. Then Africa was divided among the European countries. So Britain therefore was interested to take over Nyasaland as its territory. So Britain, coupled with the factor of the missionary ideas, then Britain was interested with Malawi or Nyasaland. So we see, due to scramble for Africa, it led to the partition of Africa, and Malawi was under Britain. Britain developed that interest to control Malawi. But now, how Nyasaland was administered as a colony is something that we need to look at. How was Nyasaland as administered? Britain declared on 14th May 1891, we are controlling Nyasa region, Nyasaland. Now, what was the administration like from 1891 to 1964? Why 1964? It was the year when Malawi now became independent. We'll talk about that later. But now, we are talking from the time when the British, they declared that now we are going to control Nyasaland. Up to the time Nyasaland became independent, 1891 to 1964. What was the administration of the British during this time of Nyasaland? So pay attention. Let us proceed and get what happened in here. So Nyasaland was a British protectorate from 1891 to 1964. So take note of that. From 1891 1964, Nyasaland or Malawi was under Britain. Then from 1953 to 1963, Nyasaland was part of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. So within the period of 1891 to 1964, that period of the British administration, within that one, from 1953 to 1963, then the British, they joined 3 countries to be one. Northern Rhodesia, which is Zambia, Southern Rhodesia, which is Zimbabwe, and Nyasaland, which is Malawi. These 3, they were formed to be a federation. A federation is a union. So they formed one country. The British formed one country, which was called the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. 2 Rhodesias, North Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia. Northern Rhodesia, Zambia. Southern Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. And Nyasaland, which is now Malawi. Now, it was administered in a number of ways. Now, like Zomba was established as the administrative capital of Nyasaland. So during this period when Malawi was under the British, Zomba was the first capital, was the administrative capital. All the things that are happening now in Lilongwe, the Capitol Hill and whatever the government offices, they were in Zomba. So Zomba, during the period when the British were ruling Malawi, Zomba was the capital city and all government offices were in Zomba. And Sir Harry Johnson as the first commissioner and consul general. As we have already pointed out, the British government appointed Sir Harry Johnson to be the administrator and the consul general. The administrator and the consul general, it was Sir Harry Johnson. So this is what we see here. So to this far, I need to stop here first before we go to the next part. So part 1 of unit 16 ends here. But before I leave you, as usual, here is a small work that I need to leave with you. So to this far, pause the video a little bit and copy the questions. So these are the questions that you need to go through and copy them and answer the questions correctly. So after this then, you need to write your answers correctly and present it to your teacher or whoever, and can correct you where you have made the mistakes. But next time we are proceeding with part 2 in unit 16, and part 2 we are going to look at what Johnson's administration did from 1891 to 1964. What Johnston's administration did from 1891 to 1964. So be there next time as we look at this part 2 of the same Nyasaland as a British protectorate. I thank you so much for your attention, and please keep on learning because it will be good for you. Thank you for your attention, and thank you so much.